Hi, welcome. I'm Melody White. I'm not sure where you'll be viewing this, Soul Guides. If it's Soul Guides, welcome. Sacred Space, online, or wherever you might be seeing this, I appreciate your presence. In some of the videos, you've seen me talk about these three bodies listed over here: physical, subtle, and causal bodies. And anyway, I'm taking this path down, understanding these more, and directing more towards it, like paying attention to them, being more mindful that I'm not just this. And but this is, we have this physical body because it allows us to experience life. If we were just little beings of light, we could not have interactions with people. And those interactions is kind of where this subtle body is. And it's, so physically I can touch my body, I feel it, I can touch another, and I feel them. And that touch is very relevant because it deepens down to these bodies. For instance, if someone, puts their hand on my shoulder warmly, or I feel that. So this subtle body is that place of feeling that touch. Physically, I feel it on my body. And then emotionally, I feel it, and that's that subtle body being connected to it. That's why the sense for love is touch, because it provides this feeling of warmth, as if someone touched you in a negative way or were to hit you or something, you would feel it in terms of it being negative and harmful to your body, and not just the physical body, meaning if someone hits you, it's not just felt here. And I guess that's the awareness that's deepening for me, is how to live more consciously with the understanding of these bodies and what they do. In the type of yoga I share, Samdana Yoga, I think you've heard me say this, is that Samdana is about healing of a wound. And it's about addressing this, using the physical body to address the subtle body. And then that in itself leaves a place for perception, which is how you're taking information in and actively becoming aware of how the soul is advancing, how it's hopefully moving towards enlightenment, greater understanding. And so, I usually don't use the terms right and wrong, or good and bad, or good and evil, and stuff like that. But I had this conversation recently with my son about this. He's very much about right foods. He only eats, very things that have been consciously prepared or grown. And so when we were recently talking about this is something that's very easy for him to understand and relate to. And he's very disciplined about this. And understands this. And I think most of us now understand that if we put garbage in, it's going to affect our physical body. So that there really is something in terms of right and wrong. There are no other way to say it than that. So I'll use this term here, that right foods, things that have a life force to them, have been shown to be very physically healthy to our bodies. If I eat fruits and vegetables and things that are grown from the earth, they have a life force to them. They were alive before I picked it. And that life force moves into my body and creates more life and energy for me. Whereas if I eat processed foods and things that do not have a source to the earth, they were not alive, then it's going to start to make my body feel heavy and dense. So right foods have prana to them. They have, and particular types of prana, which we won't get into here today, but they have particular types of prana that support your physical body. And so as I move into deeper study, I'm understanding that right foods are what we should feed our body, and right impressions, and we'll talk about what that is what determines how you feel and see the world. And this is a deep topic, and I'll do my best to share my thoughts on this, and would love to hear comments or emails back about what you think on this. But right impressions, and when you think about impression, if you were holding something that was like a foam, and I put my hand on that foam, it would make an impression on it. And things can be lasting impressions based on how we perceive that, process it, let it go, or let it, become part of us. And so I was fortunate enough to grow up in a home where my parents were very much in love, and I witnessed what I believe as a right impression of a family and of a couple who loves each other. And that impression set up an ideal for me about family and spouse relationship and how that serves for the greater good. We're living in a world where the media is, our technology has allowed us to have tremendous communication immediately. It's created a kind of a 24/7 on. Of course, we have control over that. We can turn our devices off, but we don't always. And technology is great if it's used to serve the greater good. Just like anything, it can be used for wrong purposes. And now, I feel like we're living in a world where we're not mindful of the impressions that are being created by what's out there. And so I'll use entertainment, for instance. A lot of our entertainment is violent. And when we sit down and watch a show that is violent, it makes an impression on our being, and it will make you feel a certain way. And, I've always been one that can't really watch anything that's just not uplifting and good. I mean, uplifting, I shouldn't use the term good. Good is relative, but that's uplifting. And so things that are uplifting are inspirational, are considered to be right impressions. And I realize that that's still based on your personal perception, but I believe that perception of how you begin to see the world starts when you're young, when that first impression is made on you, and because of that impression, you feel a certain way. You're lifted by it, or you're somewhat damned by it. You're affected in a negative way, is what I would consider a wrong impression. And it begins to set forward my ideals. And so going back to the type of entertainment that is out there, and I know this is a hot topic, and I'm not trying to get into political aspects of things, but I am concerned for all of us, but especially for our youth, who, when they come into this world, are setting up their time. They're coming in, and they are having an option. How would I put this? Impressions are being made, and the goal of sharing this is to hopefully create an awareness that these impressions are happening, that they are making impressions upon the soul that will create the ideal that they grow up with. And so in terms of that, if violence is our entertainment, then the impressions that we are setting forward on the soul of our youth is that there's not a lot of value to life. And so if you're witnessing one violent act after another, it begins, and we all know this has been out there before, it begins to desensitize us. And until two things that can happen, we have no value, we have no understanding of the value of life, but we also don't have a real ideal of something that's good or uplifting. The more violence we see and have in those type of impressions upon us, the more negative it can make us feel, the heavier it can make us feel. And we, at this time, in 2018, of September of 2018, we have experienced here in our world acts being taken by youth where they take their own life. or where they take the life of others. And it is definitely my firm belief that it's based on the impressions that's happening, and that as a whole, me as an individual, as a parent, as a friend, a sister, a mother, whatever that might be out there, that I need to be mindful of the impressions that I bear witness to, that I feed to my body based on what I view and watch, and the impressions that I am by my words and actions setting up for others. And so that we can begin to make choices about what we're willing to allow to make an impression on our soul. And that so it'll start with me, that I will start with myself feeding the right impressions to my spirit, so that my spirit walks around in a light-hearted, feel-good way. And so I can only imagine that if I do that on a regular basis, just like that it would begin to strengthen me, and I would handle life around me better than if I were feeding it with negativity or negative and wrong impressions. Think about in terms of, like I said, this is very easy to think about, or to not a lot of dispute. If I feed my body foods that are nourishing and have life force in them, I'm going to see a result. I'm going to have a healthier body from this. And the understanding that right impressions, bearing witness to things that are uplifting, inspirational, feeding that to my senses, because impressions are taken in by the senses. This is literally taken in through the mouth. Your other senses that you're taken in through what you witness, through your eyes, what you hear. If you are in a home life that there's a lot of violent action, angry words, those are impressions. They are affecting the ideals, the soul of whoever is witnessing this. And so I guess my hope here is that we begin to understand this more, that we live more consciously aware that just like right foods feed this physical body, right impressions feeds our soul and creates the ideals for which our society is working with. So if we want to have a different world, manifest a world of peace and harmony, then we've got to not just focus on the physical, even though this is very important. We've got to feed ourselves right impressions as well. And it's not to limit things, but it's to be to make conscious choices about what uplifts and strengthens us. And I understand that there'll be different perceptions on that. But for me, what I've noticed is when I hear something, when I see something, how does it make me feel? Because this is where you're feeling it. You're feeling it here, and it makes this massive impression here on the soul. And so if we can make choices where we're feeding ourselves with things that uplift us, if we speak and behave in a way that's uplifting to others, and that takes time and stepping away a lot of times before you respond to things. And that's a whole nother, we've done a video about our responses and creating space before we respond. But so we're moving around in the world, be mindful of what we're doing with our actions that are creating impressions around the people that might be stewards for us. For instance, if you're a parent, or if you're somebody taking care of a parent, and what you do with them, how that creates a feel for their world, because this is what is going to dictate how society is if we want our ideals to be one of harmony and peace, right impressions are essential. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you. And of course, I realize that you may have a lot deeper understanding of this. We'd love to hear from you in emails, which is melody@mastersequencer.com or Sacred Space. You can get in touch with us. We're grateful for your presence and your time here with us today. And may we choose more consciously that which we feed our spirit, that we create a world with ideals that are allowing us to live in harmony and peace. Thank you.